I'm Suraj, and working as assistant professor in Vidya Academy of Science and Technology currently. Okay, so as ma'am has introduced, I'm having a background of electronics and communication engineering. I did my BTech graduation from in electronics and communication engineering. After that, I did my master's in communication engineering, and I specialized in signal processing. Okay, my area of interest is in signal processing and artificial intelligence. Okay, so that's why I'm here before you to present this topic. Okay, so today we are going to discuss about non-parameterized models in this session. Okay, only two non-parameterized models. There is KNN and naive-Bayes classifiers. Okay, so KNN. Maybe you might have familiar with the name. KNN stands for K nearest neighbor algorithm. Okay, K nearest neighbor algorithm and naive-Bayes classifiers. Okay, so very famous algorithms actually. You might have wondered about the. There are a lot of applications for this K nearest neighbor algorithm. I just want to just start with an informal case study. Okay, so you might have wondered about the YouTube thumbnail, right? So YouTube thumbnail or YouTube suggestions. So you might have seen like there will be a lot of suggestions for next videos when you watch a video, right? So how these suggestions are working? Actually, this is working based on this algorithm, K nearest neighbor algorithm. So they will be using this algorithm to predict you or just classify you in some or they will put you in some kind of classification, and they will categorize you in some kind of users with some kind of users, and they are going to use that to predict your likes and dislikes. Okay, so there is an application for this K nearest neighbor algorithm, and naive-Bayes classifier is having also a lot of applications. In one of the applications is spam filtering. Okay, spam filtering is a great application of naive-Bayes classifier. Okay, so that is why we are focusing on KNN and naive-Bayes classifiers for understanding non-parameterized models. Okay, so since these algorithms are very basic algorithms, we might be comfortable. We will be comfortable dealing with these algorithms in the starting of our AI journey. Okay, so let's. Okay, so in ML algorithms, the most popular category is, as you know, supervised and unsupervised learnings. So if you ask someone what are the different types of algorithms present in machine learning, someone will say like it is supervised and unsupervised classification. It's true. There are a lot of classifications in ML algorithms. Okay, so supervised and unsupervised, you may be having some idea right now. But now we are just going to another classification. It is parametric and non-parametric classification of ML algorithms. So actually in the heading in the today's topic you might have watched, it is non-parametric machine learning algorithms that we are going to deal with today. Okay, so before going to non-parametric model, we should have a brief introduction about parametric algorithms. That is why I'm just briefing about what is parametric algorithms. Okay, so what is parametric machine learning algorithm? Okay, in simple we can explain like machine learning algorithms which has a mapping function or which has a characteristic function or a mathematical function to map the input and the output. That algorithms are called parametric machine learning algorithms. Or in simple, if I can explain, like if you have a characteristic equation y is equal to beta naught plus beta 1 of x. Okay, so you can view this equation like output equation y is equal to beta naught plus beta 1 of x. So x is the input that you are going to feed to the system. Okay, so this is the equation that you need to solve. Okay, so the system will be learning to solve beta naught and beta 1. So if you estimate beta naught and beta 1, your problem is solved, because if you give a value of x, it will definitely give you value of y. Okay, so this kind of equation, this kind of systems based on this mathematical equations, simple equations, are called parametric machine learning algorithms. Okay, so for an example is simple linear regression. Yesterday you might have learned about simple linear regression. Okay, Ravi sir might have told about linear regression, right? So this is an example for a parametric machine learning algorithm. Okay, and what about this algorithm? What are the features of this kind of algorithms? It is to the point. Yeah, if you have the input, you can directly predict the output. It is not that much complex. It will just follow one function, and it will stick to it. Definitely, it will stick to that function to predict the value. Okay, so what one more point I want to add is the amount of data you are going to give for training is not that much significant. Okay, it does not depend that much on the volume of data. If you have data, it's fine, but the volume of the data is not that much significant. Okay, because it follows a function. It does not learn from all the parameters in the function. Okay, and the examples of this kind of algorithm is, as I have told earlier, it is linear regression. So regression algorithms are of this kind, and linear discriminant analysis is of this kind. And perceptron, you might have heard about perceptron. It is I can call it as starting of deep learning. Okay, origin of deep learning. So you all will become familiar if you go into artificial intelligence area. Okay, so these all algorithms are mainly based on parametric machine learning algorithms. Okay, so and what are the advantages of this parametric machine learning algorithms? As it is just told, it is simple. Okay, because it is just follows a mathematical function. It is simple, and as it is simple, it is fast also. Okay, because the training and all, it requires less amount of data, so it will be fast. Okay, so and it requires only less amount of data. If it is having an advantage, it should have also some disadvantage also, right? So that's why we are moving to non-parametric machine learning algorithms, right? Okay, so what may be the disadvantages that this kind of algorithms are having? The first disadvantage is having is it is constrained. Constraint means it will stick to their assumptions and functions. It will stick to if you have found the equation, if you have solved beta naught and beta 1, for example, you will not. It cannot. What about if you have some other functions like not a linear function? If you have an exponential function or some logarithmic function. So at this time, if it is not linear, we categorizing this values is a bit difficult. Okay, so this is its advantage, and the limit and one disadvantage. And one more disadvantage that we will feel is it is not that much effective to complex data sets. It is effective to simple data sets, but if you deal with complex data sets with a lot of parameters or that values that we cannot imagine, if the dimensions are very high, we are not able to use this algorithm. Okay, so these are the disadvantages of this parameterized models, and due to these disadvantages, we are moving to non-parametric algorithms. Okay, so non-parametric algorithms. We are going to discuss about non-parametric machine learning algorithms, and in the definition you can see it is just the opposite of parametric machine learning algorithms. So in parametric machine learning algorithms, we were deriving a mathematical function to map your input and output. So if you find the function, you will get, if you solve the function or solve the equation, you will get the output. Here, here we will not have a function. We will not make the algorithm to learn the function. Okay, so we will give free data, or we will give this system its freedom to learn from the data. Okay, so here we do not take any assumptions. Okay, so since we are more depending on the data that we are giving for the training, we require a lot of data. Okay, we require a huge amount of data for this kind of algorithms. Okay, that is the main constraint of this kind of algorithms. So if you ask what kind of problems we can approach for non-parametric ML algorithms, I will say, like, if you have a huge amount of data, you can go for machine learning algorithms, non-parametric machine learning algorithms. It's true. And one more point I will add: if you do not have prior knowledge about the data you are dealing with, if you do not have the basic prior knowledge about the data you are dealing with, you can go for non-parametric ML algorithms. But the thing is, you should have a lot of data with you. Okay, huge amount of data with you. Okay, only that is the constraint. Okay, so example for this kind of algorithms are, of course, k-nearest neighbor algorithm, KNN. It's oftenly called KNN, and naive-bayes classifier. Okay, KNN classifier, naive-bayes classifier, and SVM classifier. SVM classifier you might have learned it yesterday, right? So support vector machine classifier, and the famous NN. NN is neural network. Okay, very famous neural network. So these all things learn from the data. Okay, we are not the one who predict giving the equation to map the input and output. It is a system that learn from the data and it maps its own. Okay, so these are the algorithms, main algorithms in this non-parametric category, and we are going to deal with KNN and naive-bayes classifiers today. Okay. Okay. So what are the advantages of this kind of algorithms, or this kind of classifiers? It is flexible because it fit to large number of features. As I have told, what are the disadvantages of parametric classifiers? That will come as an advantage here. Okay, what about the power? Power is not the physical power. It is the power of this algorithm. Okay, its efficiency, or its range to classify, its range of problems that it can be approached to. Okay, and the performance is also very good compared to what kind of algorithms? Parametric models. Okay, and the disadvantage is very large amount of data you require. Okay, however, large amount of data is available right nowadays, so it is not a problem for this kind of algorithms. And when we deal with a large amount of data, definitely it's gonna be slow, right? If you have to process a lot of amount of data, then the system will go slow. And if you have a lot of data, it will automatically come to overfitting, right? So now you may be knowing what is overfitting, right? So overfitting is nothing but, if you in simple, if you don't have an idea, just make it simple. Overfitting is nothing but if you overlearn something. Okay, overlearn something, it is overfitting. Okay, in simple. Okay, you can give different dimensions to that, but in simple you can say that it is overlearn. Okay, so these are the advantages and disadvantages of for this non-parametric model algorithms, or non-parametric classifiers. Okay, so as you have seen, advantages are coming in front compared to disadvantages. That's why I just put disadvantages as a small point. Okay, so it is very useful algorithm. Okay, KNN and naive-Bayes classifiers are very useful classifiers, which the world is using right now. Okay, so now we are moving to the k nearest neighbor classifier. So k nearest neighbor classifier, the term k, the k stands for, so I will explain k later only. Okay, so some message, not to me, right? Okay, so k nearest neighbor classifier, this k I will be going to explain later in with an example. I will explain k. And nearest neighbor classifier, nearest neighbor, right? Nearest neighbor, sorry, so sir, this classification is same as supervised and unsupervised learning. This is another kind of classification. Actually, it is parametric and non-parametric classification. Okay, under non-parametric classification, we are classifying this kind of classifiers. Okay, so k nearest neighbor algorithm, the nearest neighbor means nothing but we will be classifying, or we will be predicting one kind of our test data, and we will find a match in our neighbor. Okay, we will find a match in our neighbor and we'll proceed with that match. Okay, so that is a kind. Okay, that is a thing that we are going to do here. Okay, so k nearest neighbor classifier here. The basic concept of k nearest neighbor classifier is lazy learners. Okay, so this kind of explanation is very, I think this kind of explanation is very good for this k nearest neighbor classifier. Okay, lazy learner approach we are going to use in this k nearest neighbor classifier. Okay, so what is lazy learner? Lazy learner, as the name suggests, lazy learner, you all know, right? Lazy learners, what they will do? They will they will learn when the time comes, right? Okay, when the exam comes, they will learn something, and they will they will write the exam, right? So that kind of learning is done by k nearest neighbor classifier. Okay, so lazy learners, what is the opposite of lazy learners then? It is eager learners, right? Eager learners, what eager learners do? Whenever teacher teaches in the class, they will catch it, they will digest it, and they will understand it, and they will keep it for the exam, right? So whenever a question is asked in the exam, they know the things. They have already processed that piece of information, and they will they will answer the question, right? So all the algorithms, like all the classifications, like before that you have used decision tree or anything, this kind of learning has done. Okay, eager learning has done. Okay, but in lazy learners, they will collect all the information. They will not process the data. Maybe they will not learn from the data, or the model will be made at the last moment. That's it. Okay, they will collect the data, maybe some kind of processing they will do. Okay, and they will keep the data for making the model at the last moment. Okay, when a test data is applied, they will suddenly wake up, they will make the model, and they will predict. So that is a kind of learning that k nearest neighbor classifier is doing. Okay, so it is a lazy learner approach. So one thing we need to keep in mind is it is a lazy learner approach. Okay, and it has actually evolved in 1950s, but as you know, k nearest neighbor is lazy learner approach. So we need to store a lot of data here. A lot of data will be there. So you need to have a lot of hardware to store this data, right? Actually, k nearest neighbor algorithm is doing nothing but memorizing all this input tuples. Okay, so I will call it a tuples. Okay, input data or each instance of input data as tuple. Okay, so it will memorize all these tuples, and for memorizing all these things, you need a lot of hardware, right? So that is one of the constraint of k-nearest neighbor classifier. So in 1950s, there was no that technology was not that much developed compared to 1960s, right? So in 1950s, actually k-nearest neighbor classifier algorithm has developed, but it came to popular in 1960s. Okay, in 1960s only it came to its popularity. And this algorithm is some kind of pattern recognition. It will observe all the patterns of the training data, and if you supply a test data, it will closely observe it, and it will find a match or the best match from the neighbors or from the previous data that we have already given it for training. Okay, so by comparing this given test tuple with the training tuples, it will find an analogy. Its analogy is like this, and the trained tuples are maybe having n number of parameters, right? Okay, the trained tuples may be having a lot of parameters. I mean, lot of fields, right? So if it is having n attributes, then actually k-nearest neighbor algorithm will have a plot of n tuples that is in n dimension space. So each tuple will be having a point, will be representing a point in an n dimensional space. Okay, so that we won't plot it. Okay, we are not able to plot this kind of things. Okay, so we will solve it mathematically. Okay, because we cannot see beyond third dimension, right? So it is not even so it is not necessary to plot all these things. Okay, so one thing we need to understand is each tuple that we are going to give for training will be having a point in the n dimension space. Okay, and the one tuple that you are going to give as a test data will be also having a space in this n dimension space, right? Okay, and what our algorithm is doing is find the best match from the neighbors of this space, from this neighbors of your space, and find the best match, the closest neighbor from this space, and predict and classify our tuple to be a kind of this closest neighbors. That is a thing that k-nearest neighbor classifier is doing. Okay, so that is a so what this clause term has come, right? So how do you find this closest term from the neighbors, nearest neighbors? That is the another issue that we will be dealing with. So closeness. So how you can say or how we can define the closeness of tuples from the test tuple? We use Euclidean distance to find the closeness of two tuples. Okay, Manhattan distance is also okay for this algorithm. Okay, sometimes they use Manhattan distance, sometimes we use Euclidean distance. Okay, so Euclidean distance, how to find Euclidean distance between 2 points is as shown in the equation. Okay, so we have h1 is equal to x11, x12 up to x1n parameters, and h2 with parameters h21, h22 up to h2n. So there are n parameters for h1 and n parameters for h2. And the Euclidean distance is the equation for Euclidean distance is like root of sigma I is equal to 1 to n h1i minus h2i the whole square. So I think you got this equation, right? So this equation gives the difference between the distance or some kind of like that. Okay, if you have watched, it is somewhat like mean square root error, right? So not mean. Okay, we don't take the mean here. Okay, so this is the equation for Euclidean distance. Okay, so using this Euclidean distance, we will find the closeness of a tuple with the training tuples. Okay, so if you provide a test tuple to our system, it already have all the tuples plotted in its n dimensional space, right? So it will find all the Euclidean distance between all the training tuples and our test tuple. Okay, so for each tuple we will get a Euclidean distance, right? So each tuple you will get a Euclidean distance, and you will find the minimum Euclidean distance tuple. Okay, maybe you will not take one tuple as the closest. You may take a set of tuples which are closest, and you may take an average of number of cases in that set, and you may predict the value of x1 or the test tuple. Okay, so the how we can predict the value, that we'll deal it with later. Okay, so now you might have got the closeness term, how the closeness term is defined in this k nearest neighbor algorithm. Okay, so we use Euclidean distance. Okay, so Manhattan distance is also okay. Okay, and before dealing with these all things, we should have to understand the importance of normalization. Okay, so normalization is done before calculating all these things, or before dealing with all these parameters. Why normalization has to be done? It is simple. If you have a data set with your one parameter as income and another parameter as your age, okay, one parameter as income and another parameter as age. So income may be in the range of thousands or 10,000s or something like that. Okay, age will be under 100, right? Okay, so comparing these values, if you develop a system like this, definitely the income parameter will have more influence on your output, right? Because its value is very high. Okay, so age will not be having that much influence compared to income, right? So if two people are there, one is having 2,000 rupees is monthly salary, and one is having 10,000 rupees as monthly salary, the difference is 8,000, right? But if the age difference is one is having 40 years old and one is of 42 years old, age difference is only 2 years. Okay, so this kind of things will affect our prediction model. Okay, so in order to reduce this, in order to avoid this kind of overweighing of the attributes, overweighing means this income parameter will overweigh the age parameter. Okay, so in order to avoid this overweighing, we need to use normalization. Okay, so here there are different normalization techniques. Here it is one of the most famous normalization techniques I have given in the slide. It is min-max normalization. Min-max normalization. So if you have a parameter and if you have the value v, so we will find v minus v min of a divided by max of a minus min of a. So what is min of a? So min of a is nothing but the minimum value of that parameter in your data set. That's it. Okay. What is max of a? Max of a is nothing but it is the maximum value of a, or maximum value of that parameter in your data set. Okay. So you need to normalize your parameters before giving to the training set, giving to the for the training. Okay, so this is min-max normalization, and you might have think about the non-numeric attributes, right? So if you closely observe, you can watch that if you find Euclidean distance equation, there are only numeric parameters, right? If you want to find the difference, it should have to be numeric, right? What if the parameters are not numeric? Okay, for example, if the parameter is color, the parameter is non-numeric and it is just color. Okay, so color, maybe for some kind of data it will be giving blue color, and for the test data, if I'm giving blue color, how can you map it with the input data using Euclidean distance? Okay, for dealing with this non-numeric attributes, we have a thumb rule. Okay, for nominal attributes, we have a thumb rule. So if you have a corresponding attribute in tuple, test tuple, and the training tuple, if two are identical, for example, both the colors are blue, then we will take the difference between Euclidean distance between them as 0. Okay, if two are identical, we will take the difference between them as 0. And if two are different, if one is blue and one tuple is red, then we will take the difference as 1. Okay, completely different. Okay, so difference 0 means it is similar, it is very much similar, it's same. And if the difference is 1 means it is completely different. Okay, so in this case you may feel like if input is blue, and if it is similar to what is the difference between blue and white and blue and black? Is it same? No, of course it is. If you are treating like blue and white is 1 and blue and black is also 1, it is not a good algorithm. It is not a good technique, right? Okay, so there are different techniques dealing this also. Okay, some cases you will treat like blue and white as more close to 1 and blue and black as more close to 0. Okay, there is only small difference between blue and black compared to blue and white. Okay, so there are different techniques to deal that also. Okay, so I was just giving an insight to this, how to deal with non-numeric attributes also. Okay, non-numeric attributes, we will just take this, we will just check whether they are same or not. Okay, for starting we will do like this. Okay, in your advanced algorithms you can definitely implement the idea that I have given with this blue black and blue white thing. Okay, and one more thing that we need to deal here is, what about the missing values? Okay, so data set may not be perfect, right? There may be some missing values in the data set. There may be some missing values in the test set. Okay, if you are providing a test tuple, there may be some values which are missing, right? So how to deal with this missing values? Okay, so one method is giving the maximum possible difference. Okay, if you don't have the value, you will give the maximum possible difference there. Okay, so difference and all are related to this nominal attributes, right? Okay, so nominal attribute means, so if one color is missing there, you will give difference as 1. Okay, in test case or in the training tuple, if one color is missing, you will definitely give the difference as 1. Okay, so that is okay for nominal attributes. What about numeric attributes? If our parameter is a numeric one, and both in the test and training cases it is missing. Okay, so consider tuple h1 as test 1 and h2 as train 1. Okay, so in this h1 and h2, in both cases, if the numeric attribute is missing, then what we have to do is just take the difference to be 1. Okay, it's okay. It's dealing with the both missing cases is very easy. Okay, and what if one value is missing? If the test case is missing with a value, or the training case is missing with a value, we will use an algorithm like this mod 1 minus v naught or mod 0 minus v naught. Okay, we will find mod 1 minus v naught. What is v naught? It is a parameter which is not missing. Okay, we have only one value missing here. Okay, so we will be having another value present there, right? So that present value is v naught. Okay, so we will take mod of 1 minus v naught or 0 minus mod of 0 minus v naught, and we will calculate the greater one there, and we will substitute that in the difference column. Okay, so this is how we deal with the missing values. And next is now we are going to have an idea about what is this K. What is this K stands for? Okay. Hello, I'm audible, right? Hello. Okay.
Yes, sir.
So, yeah, I'm not used to. Usually in my classes, I ask a lot of questions, so I'm not used to this. So if I when I'm silent for a lot of time, I have a feeling like I'm not online. Okay. Okay. So how to determine value of K? That is the next question. Or what is K? That is a main question that we need to address it. Okay. So in simple, I can say like it is experimentally determined. K is experimentally determined. We will start with K is equal to 1, and we will move to K is equal to 2. We will increment K, and we will check the accuracy of the model. We will continuously monitor the accuracy of the model, and after a particular time, you will get a maximum or minimum rate of error. If you increment K like this, at particular point, you will find that your model is having the minimum rate of error. And at this point, you will stop the K, and you will take that K as your final K. Okay, that is a general approach that we will deal with K. Okay, so when K is equal to 1, you will just compare only one nearest neighbor. Okay, so we will find the most closest neighbor of your test tuple. Okay, you will find the most closest neighbor of your test tuple. You will classify that according to that. Okay, you will say that this is of this kind, or this will be having all the properties of this kind. Okay, so that is a approach that we will be following here. Okay, and what if K is 1, K is 2? Okay, when K is equal to 1, you will find the most closest neighbor, right? When K is equal to 2, you will find two closest neighbors. You will find two closest neighbors. And what if K is equal to 3? You will find three closest neighbors. Okay, you will find a set of three closest neighbors, and you will observe them, and you will have an idea about. You will be having an idea about what classes these are belonging, right? So it is easy. If you locate the closest neighbors, you can easily predict the behavior of your test tuple. Okay, so here we will be using minimum error rate, okay, to predict the K value. Okay, so this is an example. This is a example how we can use K here. Okay, so consider two classes, class A and class B. Okay, we have class A in blue color and class B in yellow color. Okay, so this is consider this is represented in n-dimensional space. Okay, so because I don't we have only a two-dimensional screen with me. Okay, so we need to represent it somewhere, right? So it is not just to represent it in two-dimensional space, but for time being I'm representing it in two-dimensional space. And class A is having 5 values, class B is also having 5 cases. Okay, so there are only 10 trained tuples here. Okay, and 5 of them belong to class A and 5 of them belong to class B. Okay, and we are considering a new test tuple. Okay, it is represented as a star here. Okay, so it is represented as a star here, and we need to find whether this test tuple is in class A or in class B. Okay, we need to find this test tuple to be in class A or class B. Okay, this is the question. Okay, so what we are going to do is we are considering a K here. Okay, so first we are considering K is equal to 3. Okay, so K is equal to 3 means you will be considering three closest neighbors to the star, or three closest neighbors to this test tuple. Okay, so if you observe, you can see that you can see my cursor, right? So this tuple, and this tuple are the three closest tuples to this star, right? So I will, if you take k is equal to 3, you have to consider three closest neighbors. Three closest neighbors are these three, and among these three, two are of class B and one is of class A, right? So the probability of the star or new test case to be in class B is higher. Okay, so an intelligent guess is right, what this star is of this class, right? That is the importance of k here. Okay, so when k is equal to 3, the case is like this. Okay, so you will classify this new case test case as class B. Okay, the star belongs to class B. And if you consider when k is equal to 6, what happened? If you consider k is equal to 6, you need to find 6 closest neighbors. Okay, when k is equal to 6, you need to find 6 closest neighbors. So we have already 3 closest neighbors found out, right? These 3 are the 3 closest neighbors, and the next closest neighbor is this blue. Okay, we have added that, and the next closest neighbor is maybe this one, right? This blue. So we have added that, and the next closest neighbor is this blue. We have added that. If you observe, the yellows are very far, right? So I have added all the 6 closest neighbors to my neighborhood, right? So I have added all the closest neighbors, and I observe. So if you observe, the number of blues or number of class A's in this neighborhood is very high compared to the number of classes in class B, right? So I will predict like this star is going to belong in class A. It is an intelligent guess, right? So actually we don't need to say like it is the class A, it is a class B. It is not required. You can say the probability. So if you intelligently answer this, you can say like the star belongs to class A. The probability of class star belong to class A is 66%, and the probability of the star belonging to class B is 33%. So I go for the more probable one, and I will choose class A. So you can predict like that also. That is more accurate. Okay, so this is the importance of K in K nearest neighbor algorithm. Okay, so K nearest neighbor algorithm. This is a Netflix case study. Okay, so I think if we have time, so yeah, Revati has if star occurs in equal number of class A and class B, right? So at that time, that is why we have to choose K wisely. Okay, choosing even number of K is not that much wise, right? Okay, so if you want to choose K, I prefer you choose an even not an even number, an odd number. Okay, also the Euclidean distance also matters. Okay, Euclidean distance between this, if you have, for example, if you have 2 neighbors. Okay, in the neighborhood you have 2 neighbors, but the Euclidean distance differs, right? So wise algorithm will always deal that. Okay, Euclidean, it will it will consider the Euclidean distance also. Okay, so this is the Netflix case study, and I will discuss it if I have enough time. Okay, so another case study we are going to discuss. Okay, for that I will just present one of the windows. Okay, now you can see an Excel sheet, right? An Excel sheet is visible, right? Okay. Okay. So this is also a case study. Okay. I thought this is more. This will give you more insight into K-nearest neighbor compared to this Netflix case study that we will discuss if you have time. Okay. So this is a data set. This left side, this 3 columns. Okay. So this is a data set. In this data set, it is giving some idea about people's height and weight and t-shirt size. Okay, there are 18 datas in actually data set. Okay, 18 datas are there. So 18 people's data are there. Okay, so 158, 58 medium. That means first data 158, 58 medium means height is for one person, height is 158, weight is 58, and the t-shirt size is medium. Okay, like that, 18 persons data are there. Okay, so from this we need to predict a new customer has come. Okay, a new customer has come with weight 161 and height 61. Okay, weight 161 and height 61, and we need to predict whether he is having a t-shirt size medium or large. That is a simple task. Okay, so that is a task we are having here. Okay, so we need to use K-nearest neighbor algorithm to predict this. Okay, so we are going to see how K-nearest neighbor algorithm work on this kind of problem. Okay, so here we are taking K as 5. Okay, in general we are taking K as 5 here, and what is the next step we need to do? We need to calculate Euclidean distance of this new customer with respect to all the customers. Right, we have 18 customers data here. We need to find Euclidean distance of this new customer with all the customers. So how to find Euclidean distance of this new customer with the first customer, with this first customer? We know it is sigma, some value sigma h1i minus h2i the whole square, root of sigma h1i minus h2i the whole square. So we need to find Euclidean distance. How you can find Euclidean distance here? Yeah, it is very simple. It is root of 161 minus 158 the whole square plus 61 minus 58 the whole square. Right. So that will give a value, a Euclidean distance of first customer to this new customer. Okay, so I'm just writing. So Euclidean distance you can find like this. It is square root of 161 minus a2. a2 is nothing but this one. Okay, a2 whole square minus 61 minus b2. b2 is weight, this 58. Okay, so b2 the whole square. Okay, I think you understood this equation now, right? I just wrote this equation to drag it to get all the values. Okay, so for the first customer, you found the Euclidean distance. Okay, so now you know how to find Euclidean distance. It is once more I will explain. It is 161 minus 158 the whole square plus 61 minus 58 the whole square. Take the root of that expression. You will get the Euclidean distance. So the Euclidean distance now we have got here is 4.24. Okay, so I am just dragging this to all the customers. So now you have got all the Euclidean distances of the data with respect to this new customer, right? So now you need to calculate what? You need to find the neighborhood of this customer, this new customer. How we can find the neighborhood of this new customer? Already we are taking K as 5. Okay, so taking K as 5 means nothing but you need to consider 5 neighbors, 5 closest neighbors. Okay, so you need to find 5 Euclidean distances, minimum 5 Euclidean distances. Okay, so you need to find the most minimum 5. Okay, so if you look at the table, you can find that this one, this one, this one, this one, this one. These 5 values have the least Euclidean distances. This 5 is having least Euclidean distances. So we will take these 5 as the neighborhood of the new customer. Okay, so we have got the neighborhood. So from the neighborhood, you know, the t-shirt size of this one is medium, this one is medium, this one is medium, this one is medium, and this one is large. Okay, so if you closely observe the neighborhood, you can find that the probability of getting a new customer to medium class is higher compared to a large class, right? Because the number of instances are high compared to medium. So a wise guess will be what? Your new customer belongs to medium size t-shirt. Okay, or new customer is having medium size t-shirt, and if you deploy this in industry, if you deploy this in Mindra or somewhere, okay, you can easily predict his medium size, and you can show medium size t-shirts in his customer his what product search. Okay, so this is the application of this kind of algorithm. Okay, so I think now you understood how we can Euclidean distance is simple. Okay, Euclidean distance is its equation only in the here it is showing its equation only. Okay, it's nothing but square root of this value, each parameter minus its test parameter. Okay, so I am considering the new customer and the first customer. Okay, so you need to find the Euclidean distance of new customer and the first customer. Okay, so what we will do here is just take 161 minus 158, or difference between each parameter of the customers. Okay, so first parameter is weight. So weight parameter, you will take 161 minus 158 the whole square plus 61 minus 58 the whole square, and take the root of that. That's it. Okay, or its mathematical expression is explained in the slide. You can refer to that also. Okay, or you can just okay, or I will share this this Excel sheet with you. Okay, you can work on it. Okay, you can use this equation. You can easily make some models, very simple models with this kind of data. Okay, I think you understood this concept of k-nearest neighbor. Okay, how can we optimally select value of k? That is through experiments only. You can through trial and error method only you can use. Okay. Okay. I didn't get. Why did you choose the least value? Means what is that? Cosine distance calculation only, right? So it is instead of Euclidean, you can use Manhattan distance also. Okay, so cosine you will not get the distance, right? Okay, so most commonly used distances is Euclidean and Manhattan distance. Okay, Manhattan distance you will just take the modulus. That's it. Okay, you don't take the square. Okay. Okay, city block also. Okay. Yeah. The those who are marked in the yellow are least one. Okay. So if you observe this Euclidean distances, you can find that k we have taken 5. So we need to find 5 minimum Euclidean distances. Okay. So minimum 5 Euclidean distances are these 5. Okay, actually it may not be in the may not be continuous. Okay, it can be somewhere here, 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 and here. Okay, it's okay for that. For this case, we got it like this. That's all. That's it. Okay. Okay. So if you look at it, the at least minimum is 1.41. Right. Then next is 2. Then next is 2. okay, these are equal, okay, 2.23 and 2.23, then it is 3.16. Okay, if you are taking k as 6, one more value will add, right? K as 6, not one more, actually two more values will add. Okay, but in practical scenarios, equal values may not be coming because parameters numbers will be high. Okay, we have only two parameters here, height and weight. Okay, so if you consider a practical scenario, maybe parameters are thousands. Okay, so this kind of calculation will not give you equal values. Okay, each point will be having a particular point in the n dimensional space. Okay, so that's okay. Okay, k is 6, I have told, right? Okay. Okay, so I think you have understood this case study. Okay, I found very interesting. This case study is very interesting. That's why I just explained it here. Okay, because this case study gave me a clear idea when I learned k nearest neighbor algorithm. Okay, so we will move to next slide. Okay. Okay, now the slide is again visible, right? What if equal nose of M and L comes? I didn't get that question actually. Chitra. Yeah, that's equal number of M and L can come. Yeah, that's I have explained it, right. If you are that much having a problem of getting equal numbers, or your data set is it is having equal number of case A and case B, and you are pretty much sure about getting a probability of getting equal values, it's better to choose k as an odd number. Okay, so if you have in this algorithm, actually k nearest neighbor algorithm, we are predicting only what we are predicting from the count of the M and L here, right? But you can deploy some other equations also. Like you will find the Euclidean distance, you will find the most closest neighbor, you will consider, you will give more weightage the closest neighbor. That is okay for that. Okay, so after k nearest neighbor algorithm, we are moving to naive Bayes classification. And naive Bayesian classification is based on Bayes theorem. Okay, so actually Bayes theorem, we are all familiar with Bayes theorem. Yeah, it is the basic theorem of probability. Okay, so it is a basic theorem of conditional probability. Okay, so I will just I didn't put any the theory statement here. Okay, what I have put here is just the equation that we are going to use here. Okay, P of h over x, or what I can explain it is P of h over x means what? The probability of the hypothesis H to be true when you have the evidence that X is true. Okay, the probability of the hypothesis H to be true if you have the evidence that X is true. Okay, that is a simple explanation that I can give for this Bayes theorem. Okay, Bayes theorem equation, P of H over X. Okay, and the equation is P of H over X is P of X over H into P of H divided by P of X. Okay, and what all P of X over H and P of H and P of H, we know P of H is what? Probability of H or hypothesis, and P of X is P of the event, or the P of the evidence. Okay, P of evidence is P of X. And conditional probability, it is related to conditional probability because what? It is having a condition, right? P of hypothesis H to be true if an evidence is there, if an evidence of X is there. So a condition is there. That is why it is called conditional probability. Okay, so naive Bayes classification is a classifier based on Bayes theorem. Okay, based on Bayes theorem. So Bayes theorem will be applied here in its prediction to classify its values. Okay, and what about the term naive? What about this term naive? Yeah, naive. You know, naive is some kind of inexperienced, right? Like that, right? Word with that meaning, right? So what is naive Bayes classification? What does that mean? It is just because in this Bayes theorem, we are treating like the event and hypothesis to be independent, right? All the parameters to be independent. But in the actual scenario, all the parameters may not be independent. Okay, some parameters may be dependent on others. Okay, so that dependency is not actually considered here. Okay, so that is why this kind of approach is a naive approach. In the starting, the people were thinking about this kind of approach may be a naive approach. That is why the name naive Bayesian classification is given. Okay, and this is a Bayes theorem example. I don't want to give an example. Actually, I just while preparing my slide, I just put it. That's it. If you want to give a Bayes theorem example, I will explain it, or we will. If you are comfortable with Bayes theorem, I will skip it. What do you think? What do you say? Anybody? If you want to explain it, I will start. Okay. So Bayes theorem example is we will consider a deck of cards. Okay, so a deck of cards contains 52 cards, right? Okay, so a deck of cards contains 52 cards, and we need to find the probability of king if a face card has picked. Okay, that is the P of king over face means. Okay, P of king over face means the probability of king to occur or the king to be chosen if a face card has chosen. Okay, what is face card? We know a card which is having a face on it, right? So how many cards will be there? How many face cards will be there in a deck of cards? King, jack, and queen. Okay, three kind of face cards into 4. Okay, 12 face cards are there in a deck of cards, right? Okay, so we have chosen, so we have the evidence that we have chosen a face card. Then the probability of a king from that face card, that we need to find. Okay, so how we will find that? So it is a simple example. Those who know probability will say the answer very quickly. It is 1/3, that we know. Okay, because we have 12 face cards, we have an evidence that a face card has chosen, and the probability of king in face card is 4/12. Total number of kings in the face card is 4. Okay, so 4 divided by 12, it is 1/3. Okay, so now for this 1/3, to getting this 1/3, we are applying Bayes theorem. Okay, so P of king by face using Bayes theorem we are finding. Okay, so P of king over face is equal to P of face over king. Okay, what does that mean? P of face over king. We have the evidence that king has chosen. So what is the probability of that to be a face card? I will anybody can answer. Okay, P of face over king. We have a king chosen, and what is the probability of that to be a face card? Yeah, one, sure. Very Asha. It's true. It is 1, because we have already a king. That is a face card. So that probability of face card is 1. Okay. And what is the P of king from the deck of cards? This is independent. This don't have any conditions. So P of king is total number of kings in the card divided by total number of cards. So there are 4 kings in the deck of cards. So 4 divided by 52, that is 1 by 13 is the answer of P of king. What is P of face? Now we know P of face is number of face cards in the deck of cards. It is 12 cards divided by 52. So 12 by 52 or 3 by 13. Okay, so if you substitute all the values here, you will get 1 into 1 by 13 divided by 3 by 13, which is equal to 1 by 3. Okay, so this is the base theorem explanation. Okay, so yeah, 4 by 52. Okay, so I think you have got the base theorem explanation for this deck of cards example. Okay, so we are going to apply this base theorem to find to deploy it in our classification model. Okay, or naive-based classification model. Okay, so this is the likelihood. This is the terms that we are going to give for this base theorem equation. P of H over E, it is nothing but the posterior probability. Okay, how probable is our hypothesis when an evidence is observed? Okay, that is the term that you are giving to this P of H over E. That is the thing that we need to find. Okay, posterior probability, and likelihood is the yellow term, is the likelihood or P of E over H, or how probable is the evidence when our hypothesis is true. Okay, just consider when you have any confusion, just look at the previous example. Okay, so how probable is the evidence when the hypothesis is true? Okay, and the prior is how probable our hypothesis independently. Okay, prior in the blue term, it is the how probable the hypothesis, or how what is the probability of the hypothesis independently. Okay, and the red term P of E is the marginal. It is how probable is the evidence, okay, under all the possibilities. Okay, or P of E, okay, probability of the event or the evidence. Okay, so these are the terms, and now we will consider classification step, how we will classify based on naive-based classifier. Okay, so for that we are considering a data set. Okay, for considering that we will be having a data set. So in this data set, we have details about in that you can observe there are different fields. It is day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4 up to day 14. So 14 days data are given. Okay, so 14 days data are given, and what are the data given about these days? Its outlook is given, its humidity is given, its wind is given, and one more data, play. Play is nothing but a status. Okay, it just indicates whether the play has happened on this day or not, or whether they have played on this day or not. Okay, for example, if it is a cricket match. Okay, so if it is a cricket match and the first day gives an information like it was a sunny day, humidity was very high, wind was very weak, but play didn't happen. Okay, for day 3, it was like it was an overcast day, humidity was very high, wind was very weak, but play happened. Okay, so like that, 14 days informations are given in this data. So we are going to classify based on naive-based classifier. So different steps involved in this we are going to see. Okay, so first step for this kind of data we need to do is we need to get the frequency table of this data. Okay, we need to get the frequency table of this data. Okay, so frequency table, how we will find frequency table? Okay, first we will take an example. Okay, so first we will consider the frequency table of each parameter you need to find. Okay, so first parameter I am going to look at is outlook. So we have outlook parameter here. So we are going to find the frequency table of outlook. Outlook is having 3 cases: sunny, overcast, and rain. Right. So we can just look at the data set here. So table here, and we can find that outlook is having 3 kind of values: sunny, overcast, and rain. Okay, so we will fill sunny, overcast, rain here, and we need to count each cases here. Okay, so I will take rainy. Okay, so rainy, how many rainy conditions are here? We can just count rain, 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 and rain here, right? So 5 rains are here. Okay, so total number of rains is 5. Okay, among 5 rains, we need to check whether it is play has happened or not. Okay, so we will check on the D4, rain is there and play has happened. And D5, rain is there, play has happened. D6, rain is there, play didn't happen. Okay, and D10, rain is there, play has happened. D14, rain is there, play didn't happen. Okay, so we need to count the play status also. So for rainy season, play has yes status for 3 values and play has no status for 2 values. Okay, so in this table a small mistake is there. Okay, pardon me for that. Okay, so the sunny is not actually 3 2, it is 2 3. Okay, so you might have observed it. Okay, so if you are closely watching, so it's to me or okay, it's not to me, right? So now you might I will explain once more. Okay, frequency table you can calculate with respect to each parameter. Okay, so for Outlook, I have found this table. Okay, so consider this as 3 2. Okay, so in all the calculations, this mistake may be there. Okay, so don't it's just a sample test case, right? So take it easy. Okay, so just consider rainy. So rainy, there are 5 rainy cases. Among that, 3 are yes, 2 are no. Okay, overcast also, if you observe overcast, there are 4 overcast, 1 2 3 4, right? 1 2 3 4. Okay, so you can see my cursor. Okay, in first overcast the play has happened, second one also play has happened, third one also play has happened, fourth one also play has happened. Okay, so in the 4 cases the play is yes, and for 0 cases play is no for the case of overcast. Okay, so like that frequency tables we have to make. Okay, so we made frequency table of Outlook. Second, we will make the frequency table of humidity. Okay, so the humidity also you need to count like this. You need to count the humidity cases. So you need to fill the number of cases, right? So for if you observe humidity parameter, there are only 2 kind of cases, right? One, it is humidity may be high, the other is humidity may be normal. Okay, in this table, okay, high and normal, only 2 values are there for humidity. Okay, so we need to find how many high values are there. 1 2 3 4 5 6 7, right? So 7 values are there for high, and normal there are 6 and 7 values are normal also. Okay, among these high values, how many are having play status yes, that we need to count, and play status no, that we need to count. Okay, so if you look at the table, you can find that humidity high values with play status yes, it is 3, and with no, it is 4, and normal it is 6, and play no, it is 1. Okay, so you can fill the frequency table like this. Okay, I think you have understood how to fill the frequency table, right? So if you understood how to fill the frequency table, you can fill the frequency table of the wind also. Okay, similarly we can fill the frequency table of the wind. Okay, up to this it's fine, right? Okay, so if you find the frequency table, the next step is to find the likelihood table. Okay, find the likelihood table. So for finding the likelihood table, you need to use the conditional probability. Okay, so actually we are having a small mistake in this data. Okay, but I will explain it with the corrected data. Okay, so don't get misunderstood with the the confusion. Okay, we are just taking the likelihood table of the outlook. So what we need to find is its conditional probability. Okay, so P of X by C, or P of Sunny over S. It is, what is that? What does that mean? Actually, P of Sunny over S. That is, we have the evidence that the play has happened, and we need to find the probability of it to be a sunny day. Okay, so we here it is actually if you observe, you can find that it is 10 there are 10 days in which play has happened. If you observe this, this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, so that's I told one small mistake. It is actually 9. Okay, it's mistakenly interpreted as 10. Okay, it's okay, you can understand, right? Okay, so it is actually 10, actually 9, but take it as 10. Okay, so in 10 days the play has happened, and in 4 days the play didn't happen. Okay, if that is from the table that we are getting that information. Okay, so P of Sunny over S is, among that 10 days, 3 days were sunny. Okay, so P of Sunny over S is 3 by 10, it is 0.3. Okay, like that we need to fill all the conditional probabilities in this likelihood table. Okay, so this is P of Sunny over S, this is P of Sunny over No, and this is P of overcast over yes, and this is P of overcast over no. Okay, and this is P of rainy over yes, and this is P of rainy over no. Okay, and what is this? This is the total probability of 5 by 14 is the total probability of rainy days. Okay, this is the total probability of sunny days. This is the total probability of overcast days. Okay, and what about this? This is the total probability of played days, and this is the total probability of not played days. Okay, now you can understand the likelihood table, right? So we are using these equations to find directly from the table. You can redraw this likelihood table. Okay, it is very easy. Okay, what our intention is to what we are going to find out. Okay, why do we calculate all these things? Is to, we need to apply this in our Bayes theorem. Okay, so now we need to find the likelihood of yes given sunny is. Okay, that means P of yes over sunny. We have an evidence that it is a sunny day, and we need to find the probability of playing the cricket match on that day. Okay, so P of yes over sunny. P of yes over sunny, we will apply Bayes theorem. So if you apply Bayes theorem, you will get an equation like this. Okay, now you understood how this equation has come, right? Okay, we are applying just the Bayes theorem here. Okay, so Bayes theorem we have applied here, and we will just multiply all the values we have now, right? P of sunny over S we have, P of yes we have, P of sunny we have, everything we have. Okay, so we will find what likelihood of yes on a sunny day. Okay, and similarly we will find P of no over sunny day. Okay, that is probability of playing on a non-sunny day. That is, or probability of not playing on a sunny day. That is P of no over sunny. That also we will find using the this likelihood table. Okay, so we will get an equation, get a value 0.591. This is the probability of playing on a sunny day, and 0.40. This is the probability of playing not playing on a sunny day. Okay, so these values we have got. Okay, similarly, we can find likelihood table of humidity and likelihood table of wind. Okay, likelihood table for humidity we can find similarly, and likelihood table of wind also from the frequency table. You can directly write it. Okay, our intention is to apply Bayes theorem, right? So when you calculate P of yes over high, you need all the values in the Bayes theorem equation, right? For that only we are creating this likelihood table. Okay, so P of so in this equation, P of S over high. So what does this mean? This means that humidity is high and probability of playing the cricket match is this one. Okay, this equation you will I'm not explaining this equation again. Okay, this is same as that of the previous example. Okay, we are just doing the same thing that we have done for this outlook. Okay, so same thing we are doing for humidity and wind. Okay, so we have got all the equations for humidity high and humidity okay, actually we need to find everything, right? This is for sunny only. Okay, we need to find it for overcast, we need to find this for rainy also. Okay, everything we need to find. Okay, similar step we are following, and we will get all the probability, all the conditional probabilities which we will be using it for prediction. Okay, so likelihood table for humidity you understood, I think, and for the wind also the table will be like this. Okay, and this equation is very similar to it is same step we need to follow for the likelihood of the table of the outlook. Okay, okay, previous slide. Yeah, anyway, if you want to write something, you can, I will send you the slides. Okay, I will send to Biju sir, so he will share it with you. Okay, it's okay. Okay, so you have now the likelihood tables of humidity and wind. Okay, you have the likelihood table of outlook, humidity and wind now. Okay, now the actual business comes here. Okay, now you need to find, you have a condition, you have a day which is having an outlook rain, humidity high, wind weak. Okay, now you need to find the probability of you to play a cricket match in that day. Okay, or likelihood of yes on that day. How you can find? You can multiply all the conditional probabilities with the probability of yes, and you will get a conditional or likelihood of yes on that day, right? So we will just check P of outlook to be rain over yes into P of humidity is equal to high over yes into P of wind is equal to weak over yes into P of yes. Probability of into P last P probability of yes. That will give you a likelihood of a game to be played on such conditions. Okay, so for this equation only we have calculated all the parameters, all the equations, all the values from the tables. Okay, so we have now P of outlook is equal to rain over S, we have the P of humidity is equal to high over S, and we have the P of wind is equal to weak over S, and we have the probability P of S. Okay, we just multiply all these things and we will get value 0.0199. Okay, and if you and we need to find the likelihood of no also. Okay, so if you think like your likelihood of yes is 0.0199, so it is very less probable, and so you can conclude like you are not going to play today. It is wrong. Okay, it is just a likelihood. You need to find how no, because if it is playing, if it is not playing, it will definitely play. Okay, you have only two conditions as the output. Okay, one is yes, the other is no. Okay, so if you have this value, you cannot conclude like it is very less probable, so 1 minus this will give the probability of no. That is wrong. Okay, you are going to you have got a conditional probability here. Okay, so we need to find the likelihood of no also. Okay, so for that we need to take another equation. What is the equation for likelihood of no? P of outlook, because probability, conditional probability of this one into conditional probability of humidity into conditional probability of wind into due probability of no, right? That is the equation that we need to follow. Okay, so P of outlook is equal to rain over no, that we have already found, into P of humidity is equal to high over no, that also we have already found from the previous tables. And P of wind is equal to weak over no, that also we have found. Okay, and into P of no. Okay, and that will give you the likelihood of no or likelihood of not playing on that day. Okay, so if you observe, this value is light higher compared to this value. So if you have already gone for a conclusion like this is not going to happen, that was wrong. Okay, so if you compare this one, you will get the actual probability. So how you will find the actual probability? If you want to find the probability of yes, you need to the equation is like numerator is this one divided by the total probability or the total likelihood. It is this plus this. Okay, so it will be like this. So P of yes is 0.0199 divided by the total likelihood, which will be 0.55, and P of no is P of the likelihood of no divided by the total likelihood, which is 0.45. If you add these two, you will get 1. Okay, you will never get a 1 if you add these two, these likelihood values. Okay, if you add the probability values, you will get definitely a 1. Okay, from this conclusion, you can, what is the inference that you are getting from this values? It is having, so if a condition like outlook is equal to rain, humidity is equal to high, wind is equal to weak is coming, the probability of playing is 0.55 and probability of not playing is 0.45. So our model predicts that there is a 55% chance that the game will be played. Okay, that is a conclusion of this type of this example. Okay, so this is the way in which naive-Bayes classifier works. Okay, and what are the applications of this kind of this algorithm or this classifier? If you look at the industrial application, you can have news categorization. Okay, so you now different news will be coming in our television, our WhatsApp, Facebook. So these kind of news will be in different categories, right? So if you want to categorize this news according to its importance, so it may be national, it may be of national importance, it may be of international importance, it may be of sports importance. Okay, so it depends on the whom the news is targeting, right? So if you want to categorize this news, you can use naive-Bayes classifier. Okay, so that is one of the applications of this naive-Bayes classifier. And one more application you can find is spam filtering. Okay, in the starting I have told you can use this classifier in spam filtering. Okay, these two are the main applications in this one. Okay. Okay, so I think hello, is Biju there? Sir, is it okay if I explain one more data set? Sir, is it okay if I explain one more test case? One case study is there.
Test case.
One more test case you are wishing
to
the
time has
present.
Yeah, if the time has exceeded, I will just stop here, or I can just have one more test case for use case for this.
How much time you need?
Just 5 minutes. 5 minutes.
5 minutes. It's okay. Please continue.
Okay. So just a case study. This you will be finding very interesting. Okay. So that's why I just explaining. Okay. So just consider Netflix, right? So you will be familiar with Netflix now, right? What is Netflix and all you know. Okay. So one thing I need to add to this case study is Blockbuster. Blockbuster was the first this kind of app that came to market in US, right? So, but after Blockbuster was very popular and it was a hit, so it hit the market, and a lot of people were using that. But suddenly, one Netflix came there, and it took over the market, and it threw Blockbuster, and it took all the control over the market, right? So how it happened? It is just because of the prediction. It will just suggest. Netflix will give you suggestions that this movie will be good for you, or you will be liking this movie, right? Netflix, YouTube are now using this kind of suggestions. Okay, during that time, Blockbuster was not using this suggestion thing, and Netflix was using this suggestion. Okay, that's why Netflix took over this Blockbuster. Okay, so what Netflix used is K nearest neighbor algorithm. Okay, so in simple, this algorithm is explained here. Okay, consider 6 people. Okay, 6 people: John, Rahul, Roxin, Sam, and Kathy. They are already existing users. Okay, and they have already watched 5 movies: Frozen, Joker, Lucifer, Fight Club, and Inception. Okay, so these 5 movies they have already watched. Okay, and the green color represents they have liked this movie, and the red color represents they have unliked these movies. Okay, and one day a new user came. It is Nikki. So Nikki started watching movies. So Nikki started watching movies, and Nikki watched Frozen first. Nikki liked that movie. Okay, so what Netflix will be interested in this like and dislike. So Netflix is going to classify this Nikki to be a kind of one of the people among them, among this John, Rahul, Roxine, Sam, and Kathy. They are going to map Nikki to one of these people or they already have. Okay, this is a very small set I am taking. Okay, they may be having lakhs of users. Okay, so here Nikki has liked Frozen. So what Netflix will have a conclusion is Nikki may be kind of Rahul, Roxine, Sam, or Kathy. Okay, it is having more probability for Nikki to be in Rahul class or Roxine class or Sam class or Kathy class than John class. Because why? John is not interested in Frozen. Okay, and after this movie, Nikki has watched Joker. Okay, so Joker movie, Nikki didn't like Joker. So what Netflix will get and conclude from this? Netflix will conclude like Nikki didn't like Joker. So Nikki can be of type Kathy or Rahul. Okay, there is more probable for Nikki to be in Rahul class or in Kathy class. Okay, so because they have eliminated Roxine and Sam, because just because Roxine and Sam liked Joker and Nikki didn't like Joker. Okay, so if you observe the pattern, Rahul and Kathy is similar to Nikki. Okay, and after so then also we cannot say it is Rahul or Kathy which is more closer to Nikki. But after third movie, Lucifer, Nikki has liked Lucifer. So we can classify, we can say that Nikki is of type Rahul. Okay, here we will eliminate Kathy. Okay, we will eliminate Kathy and we will say like Nikki is of type Rahul. Okay, so it is more probable for Nikki to be in Rahul class. Okay, so what is the use of this kind of classification? So Netflix will definitely recommend a movie based on Rahul's preference, right? So Rahul has disliked Fight Club and liked Inception. So if they are giving a preference or a choice for next movie, Nikki will be given a movie name Inception, not Fight Club. Okay, so this is that case study that this is an example for K nearest neighbor algorithm. Okay, so with this, I'm just concluding the session. Okay, so any questions you can ask, or else we will wind up.